Hey guys, so this week I want to talk to you about something else that really I needed to remind myself of, and I'm hoping I'm going to encourage you all too in the process. It's got to do with, again, piggybacking off the last couple of weeks. Last week, talking about being discouraged, depressed, under our circumstances. The week before, talking about spending time in prayer, and then again, the Lord's got a plan. I still believe there's a plan for all of this. This week, the title, this might take a while. Just generally speaking, the faith to step out is worthless without the faith to stick it out. Like, why start something if you're not going to see it through? I believe the Lord uses process. I believe the Lord uses process to grow you and those around you. Real quick, I've been hearing this verse a lot from our pastor lately, and it's Matthew 11:28 through 30 out of the Message. And it says, "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." Like I said last week, we want peace and quiet. We want downtime. We want to learn how to live freely and lightly. We don't want anything heavy or like ill-fitting. We don't. But we don't know how to do it. The idea that this might take a while, it's not a phrase that we enjoy. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys today. By the way, I chose this as the backdrop because it's the sanctuary, and I love this room, and I miss all of y'all, and I'm hoping to encourage you guys. Like I said, I needed to hear this, and I miss y'all. I needed to hear this. Reminded myself. I'm hoping to encourage you guys through this. Can't wait till we get to gather together again at some point in the near future. And until then, this is what we're doing, right? So I want to start with John 15, 1 through 17. But we know that when God starts something, when we see something begin, we see like in the spring all these fresh new things. We know God's doing something at the beginning of something. But sometimes when it takes time, we get discouraged in the time process. So the idea of this might take a while, right? So John 15, 1 through 17 out of the NIV says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I have called you friends, for everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other." Right off the bat, it talks about fruit, and it talks about remaining, and it talks about, where there's no bearing fruit, it's going to be, taken and burned. Right off the bat, the first point I want to make in all this is fruitfulness and faithfulness. Those two terms, they're inseparable. You can't have one without the other. If you want fruit, you got to be faithful. You got to be consistently faithful if you want to see fruit. There are a lot of people out there that people, it's easy to get discouraged in being faithful, being obediently consistent in things. when maybe we don't see like results. But at the end of the day, if you want to see results, you have to be faithful, or you won't see the results. That's how it works. Jesus speaks at length about how we can bear fruit if we remain in him. However, while we crave real-time results, God is into long-lasting fruit. If we remain faithful, we'll eventually be fruitful, right? That's the point we're making here. We'd like it to be the other way around, though. As people, we're like, if we're fruitful, if we see fruit, if we see results, well, I will evangelize if Lord, you send somebody to me and they get saved, I'll go tell somebody else. We'll have 3 more worship services this year if you fill the house. I'll go do this. I will do this if you do this. We see the results, we get excited, and we want to. We continue the faithful process when we see the fruit, and that's not how it works. It's not how it's supposed to work anyway. We think we're fruitful, then we'll remain faithful. But when the fruit seems to take some time, and we don't see the fruit right away, the fruit doesn't look like we think it's supposed to, we struggle with it, right? Or maybe we're just disappointed, but maybe we're disappointed by the fruit that it's not being born from seed that maybe we didn't even sow in the first place, right? But there are a few things in life that are more frustrating than feeling unfruitful. It's one thing when we are fruitful in the wrong things, or maybe you haven't even really sowed seed at all. But what happens when we sow the right seeds, but we still don't see fruit? Like I said, when it takes longer than we think, or it doesn't necessarily look like we think it's supposed to. Now, the whole point of this is this might take a while, and I'm not talking about this COVID-19 stuff. Some of this might apply to this. I'm talking about like last week when I was talking about discouragements and like circumstances and stuff that's like real, like emotional baggage and past stuff and today's stuff and tomorrow stuff that we worry about, stuff that we focus on, stuff that like has potential to take your focus off of the Lord, off of what you're doing, off your relationship, stuff that really freaks you out, whether you like to admit it or not. Those kind of things, stuff that you're supposed to give over to him, remain in him, allow him to do the work in it, in you and through you and in it. But you don't, because you're so focused on why it's not doing what you think it's supposed to. It's those kind of things. Or maybe not working fast enough. Those kind of things. We want it to be fruitful, but at times we get frustrated. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't think I'm the only one. I've talked to enough of y'all to know that I am not the only one, but maybe I am. We'll pretend for a second maybe I am, and it applies to me, and so this is for me right now, but I don't think I'm the only one. Wouldn't it be great if we could get our hands on God's day planner, on his calendar, on his schedule book, maybe just his watch, like just to see like what his schedule looks like, so we could just get a peek at like his timetable of things, so we could say like, Lord, when is fruit coming? When is this thing going to happen? When will blank happen for me? When should I start pursuing this thing? How much longer do I have to wait for this? Wouldn't that be great? I don't necessarily think that would be great, because I know me. I know David as a procrastinator, and I knew what happened when, like in school, I knew what happened when I had a deadline for like stuff. I waited to the last possible minute. And so I feel like if I knew when that fruit would come, I feel like I knew when, if I knew when, I don't think I'd necessarily work faithful like I'm supposed to, because the growth process comes in the waiting, comes in the faithfulness, comes in the this might take a while process. That's where the growth happens. That's where the obedience happens for you and everybody else. That's the result process. We get frustrated in it. I don't like it. I hate it. I'm sure most of you do too. That's the process. That's the maturing process that the Lord is doing in us in this waiting period, in this process period. We have to remember, even though I don't think God really has a watch, he's up there like looking at his watch. I don't believe that. But even if he did, we have to remember that keeping time would mean nothing to him. Bible tells us God is outside of time. He's not bound by time. He's not constrained by time. Minutes, days, years, months, none of that matters to him because he's above all of that. 2 Peter 3:8, a day is like 1,000 years to the Lord, and 1,000 years is like a day. Time is not a problem for him. We get frustrated because time is a problem for us, right? We worry about time. Why? We do. He does not. He knows what he's doing. The difference between God's unrestrained nature and what sometimes seems like human slavery to time results in a vast disparity. We will never understand God's timing this side of heaven. Hindsight, sometimes we go, oh, I see. In the moment, we get so bombarded and so bogged down with things, we get so frustrated. This is something that every person must face the difficulty and challenge of, right? When God's timeline does not read like we want it to, it does not read like our timeline does. We all have a schedule. We all have a wish list. We all have a I wish this would go this way or play out this way. I'm a schedule guy. I have a list for my lists. I make lists because I like to be on schedule. Most of which never work out. We get frustrated when God's timeline doesn't match up with our timeline. What is the desperate job seeker to do when the employment doesn't come through? How does the married couple face another childless year when everyone around them has caught the pregnancy bug and they did not? How much longer does the single man or woman have to wait to find a good man or woman? Will science ever find a cure for the illness that is plaguing certain human beings? Right? Circumstances that can take your focus, that can, real life things that can take your focus, that can discourage you, that can make you fearful. You need a job, you need employment, you need money, discouragement things. Illnesses, sickness, health, there are things, loneliness, there are things that are real things that we like to live in this microwave world. How about the person that's hoping for less stress in their life, and every time they turn around, it's just headache and heartache after another? How about the parents that are worried about their kids, or the kids that are worried about their parents, for one reason or another? We live in a culture that is very human-centered. The word it's anthropocentric. It just means human-centered. We live as though our lives are completely about us, solely about us. Like we seek our own glory. It's all about us. It's all about me. I was just talking yesterday. I was talking with somebody yesterday about how spoiled we are, how we have so much more than we deserve, and we have so much more than we need. It's only by the grace of God. But we need to remember that it's only by the grace of God. But we have so much more than we need and so much more than we deserve. Otherwise, it's really easy to get so caught up in being like the girl from Willy Wonka, where it's like, I want it now, I want more, I want this. It is so easy to get caught up on ourselves. It's so easy. Almost everything in our environment points to instant gratification. Instant oatmeal, immediate answers. We go to Google and you don't have to learn anything. You don't have to read anything. You don't have to take it. Part of the process is gone now. 24-hour service to immediately learn anything you want, but yet you never have to retain a single thing, because guess what? You forget it. You go right back to your phone, go right back to your computer, and you learn it again for whatever you need it for. You just and there you go. You got it. You don't have to learn anything. You don't have to remember anything. It's immediately. I mean, some of you listening will remember this. Some of you won't. Did you remember the frustrating moments prior to the high-speed internet, where we had to sit at the computer? I remember sitting in the dining room for the computer to that awful dial-up tone, waiting for the internet to kick on, and then God forbid somebody would call in the middle of it, and you have to start the process all over again. I mean, how horrible would that be? Listening for that AOL dial-up tone, just to wait to connect to the internet. And then you have to wait like a couple more seconds to go from place to place because it wasn't as fast as it is now. And it was horrible. But it was what we had, right? Unlike most things in life, though, God is not about instant gratification. When we don't get things exactly as fast or as quickly, or maybe just how we think it's supposed to look, we need to remember that God has a plan, God has a process. Going back to the original verses in John 15, look, I'm not a farmer. I'm not a gardener. I don't know nothing about this. But I know that it's a lot more work than just you put your seeds in the soil and you walk away and let it do its thing. You got to prepare long before you do that. You got to be conscious of what you're doing. It takes preparation before, during, after. I mean, you got to know what you're doing, and there's a process from beginning to end. Otherwise, you're not going to yield a crop. And it's the same way in this, even in the waiting period. It takes a while, and the Lord is doing something in your life before, middle, during, after. It's all about the process, and it might take a while, a lot more longer than you think it will. I promise I'm going to get to a point. If it sounds like I'm rambling, I am going to get to a point. This is the point. One of many, I hope. God is not inactive or silent while we wait on him. During seasons of waiting, he continues to work in us. While waiting might seem a waste of time, God designed it to be productive. We think about waiting like we're in a doctor's office in the waiting room, just like twiddling our thumbs, playing on our phones, bored out of our gourds, not knowing what to do with ourselves. We are so bored. God designed waiting for a purpose. He continues to work in us while waiting. It might seem like a waste of time for us, but God designed it to be productive. The exercise of waiting is shaping and sharpening. Through it, God instills humility, patience, and peace in our hearts and our minds. He matures us. That's how he grows us. Perhaps Jesus wanted us to grasp in John 15 that we will bear the right fruit when we stay connected to him. But this process may force us to embrace a phrase most of us dislike, which is, this may take a while. It's been said, and I said this a couple weeks ago, but it's been said, I'm going to say it again, that we do not know what the future holds, but we believe in a God who holds the future. Since God is beyond time, he fully abides in the past, but also fully abides in the present and the future. In the same way that we view our surroundings at this precise moment, God just as clearly sees every day in everyone's life throughout all of history. He knows what he's doing. He knows the plan. He created you. He knew you before, right? As he was forming you. He knows you. He knows your thoughts. He knows what you need. He knows what tomorrow is going to bring too. This is maybe it's time for a cutback. Maybe this slowing down. Maybe this time where everything is slowed down, everything's weird and unusual. Maybe it's time for a cutback. Genesis 1:22 says, God blessed them and said, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the water in the seas and let the birds increase on the earth. Genesis 1:22, God blesses Adam and Eve, saying, be fruitful and increase. From the beginning, increase has been a mark of God's blessing. It's natural for us to equate increase with success. Results with success. It's natural for us to do that. It's just equate success to our ability to increase something. That's natural. Because God said in the beginning, increase, be fruitful and increase. It makes sense that we crave this increase. Which it's kind of, understandable maybe that John 15:2 is difficult for us to embrace. John 15:2, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Okay, maybe I've grasped the concept that if it's not bearing fruit, if it's not good for me, if it's toxic in my life, cut it off and get it out of here. Maybe it is bearing fruit though, but it's not bearing the right kind of fruit. Maybe it is bearing fruit, but it's not bearing fruit to its full potential. Maybe it is bearing fruit, but it still needs pruned so that it can be healthier, so it can produce the right kind of fruit. look, maybe you were good. Maybe this time is a time that you still need to dig in deeper with the Lord because he's pruning some things in your life because he wants to do something more, bigger, better, more effectively. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Back to my catchphrase. I've been saying this since day one. I don't know. But right here, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Even more fruitful. Maybe that's part of this process so we can be quiet and reprioritize and understand what is important to us and what is important to the Lord so we can get our priorities straight and together. Maybe we've been missing something in the hustle and bustle and the busy that we need to just slow down and see, and he is providing this opportunity as a way out like he does so often because he provides ways out. He's giving us this opportunity to realize what we've been missing. And we need to stop being frustrated about it. As long as this is going to take, he's going to make it take as long as it needs to so we can understand whatever it is he's trying to show us. So that we can produce more fruit than we were producing. Or produce fruit if we weren't producing. This is the reality of it. We are hoarders in our life, not just physical things. Not just in your house stuff collecting dust. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff we could all get rid of, though. I got stuff I could get rid of. I'm sure you do too. But we want more. I'm talking like emotional stuff from our past. We hoard things that aren't good for us. Physical stuff, emotional stuff. You know, we hoard stuff that we need to just lay on the altar and just give it over to him and let it go. Stuff that we need to not hold on to. We hoard these things. We want more. We pile it on. And when life gets bogged down with more and more of these things, we find ourselves stuck in a repeat because it's what we've always done. We gather more and more and more, and then we find less joy. We're not happy. We're just stuck in the same routine. Some routines are horrible and crippling, and it's what we've always done, and we continue to do it, and we find ourselves just beat up and broken. Some routines, though, done right, in the right ways, can be life-giving. Some routines can be good. We need to use this time, this downtime, to reprioritize what's going on so that we can figure out what needs pruned, what needs cut back, and what doesn't. You know, I keep hearing a lot about this whole relationship versus religion thing, and one of the definitions of religion is just the pursuit for a higher power. And I agree, we don't need to have a relationship with religion, but a pursuit for a higher power, a pursuit. We don't need that traditional nonsense where we just get in this routine, where we just do and do and do and do just because it's what we've always done. But the pursuit of, we don't need a relationship with religion, but we do need a religion with our relationship. One that grows and changes and matures as we get closer with the Lord. And that's something I really believe. As we live life continually abiding in him until we see the fruition of our fruit, we begin to shed what doesn't really matter and discover the things that really do. In our remaining, God is cutting us back and burning away our dead ends. That's what he's doing while we wait. Sometimes even the branches that bring produce still need cut back. It's not always the fruit that is the problem. It's the fruit that we are to be producing. Both branches that bear no fruit and the branches that do bear fruit must be cut, which is a painful process sometimes. It's easy to accept that God would cut off the purposeless, the unproductive things in our life, but it's difficult to accept why God would cut the parts of our lives that actually are bearing fruit. When we find ourselves experiencing John 15:2 firsthand, perhaps God would say to us, it's a cutback. You know, you're snipped if you do, you're snipped if you don't. It's the sound of pruning, right? It's the soundtrack to life is what it is. It's growing, it's growing, it's growing, it's maturing, it's maturing, it's maturing. It's growth, it's a process, it's a good thing, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. You will look back and be thankful for it. Cut off appears to be the person who is unfaithful, but what about those who are faithful who experience the cut of God's shears? It's always a good thing. The crazy reality, though, is that at a time, even the good things are cut back so they become more productive. A parent, he or she will always be a parent, but at some point God has to cut back the nurturing protector trait. Some of you might, be excited about this. But at some point as a parent, you gotta let your kids grow up. Some point, there's a cutback, right? At times, as counter to it as we may think, God will take the shears to the things that matter more, the areas that we are most productive. We might not understand, so that our lives become even greater, more fruitful, more productive. When God gives us a cutback, he can remove something we saw as good so he can replace it with something greater. In a life so bogged down and full, we must learn to differentiate what matters and what doesn't, and then commit ourselves to the things in life that are truly worth our while. Certain things in life will take a cut, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Just like we don't know what the future holds, we know who holds the future. Don't be afraid about the cuts, because God's holding the scissors, right? God's holding the pruning shears. He's the one doing the cuts. He knows where he's cutting. He knows what he's doing. One of the hardest things in our lives is determining what we need to cut back so other things can grow. We can't be consistent in every area of our lives, but we can be consistent in the areas that really matter the most. Like I said, it's time to prioritize, right? Think about what's important. It's not worth your while standing in dead places, reliving offenses, resenting opportunities you didn't have, mad about how you were raised. These things that we hold on to, it's not worth it to be standing and living in those areas. But it's hard enough to understand the difference between right and wrong sometimes. So understanding what is really worthwhile sometimes may be even more difficult. Yet if we understand that we don't have to waste our energy, because we have limited energy, by the way, right? We're human. We need to stop and rest. We have limited energy. Understanding that we don't have to waste our energy on things that are not worth our while, we can make steps towards multiplying our fruitfulness. It's like Nehemiah, like he embodied this whole process in his attempt to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. He knew he only had a limited amount of time to complete the wall. Nehemiah divided the responsibilities up amongst the people, the people that were building the walls, and the people standing guard against the people who would come against the building of the wall. He divided them up. He's like, you build and you stand guard. He just divided them up because he knew he had limited energy, limited resources. He just I'm gonna do this right. You build, you stand guard. Therefore, when someone attempted to divert Nehemiah's attention, we see in Nehemiah 6:3, he asked them why he should waste his time coming down from the wall while the work was going on. I'm not going to read it, but Nehemiah 6:3, they come up and he literally goes, why should I waste my time coming down from the wall? Look, I got people doing this, I got people doing this. We're good. He knew what was important, and he was doing what was important, and he was all laid out in front of him. See, this is it right here. The limited time we have to dedicate to our family, our friends, our relationships, our jobs, our churches, just whatever. It's wise to assess a distraction and ask ourselves, is this really worth my while? Is this really something I should be investing into? Because it's an investment. It's part of your time. It's part of your energy. It's not about what can I gain from it, but it's really worth it to prioritize what's important. With this perspective, time becomes a multiplier. We gain more time to focus on what matters when we have the capacity to determine what doesn't matter. And this is even better. God is going to make it worth your while. You can't do it all, right? It's so important to take this rest. I hate this downtime. I do. I want to get up and go and do something. I'll just walk around the block. I don't care. I'll go. I walked 4 miles last week, and I was hoping to get more than that this week, and there's still time. I don't know. Look, I don't like sitting. I don't like sitting. I am drinking coffee and doing push-ups, and I don't like it. But this is something we can't change right now. Prioritize what's important. Spend time with those that are important to you. The Lord is going to make it worth your while. You can't do it all. Commit only to what counts, right? It may bear fruit. But what fruit is it most important for you to be concerned with at the moment? Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. Is time your friend or is time your enemy? Is it all contingent on what you're sowing into? Time can be a multiplier if done right. The times in your life where you feel most unfruitful are most likely actually God's. It's this incredible process in your life. God does use process, right? If you're being faithful, let me add that. If you're being faithful, the times in your life where you feel the most unfruitful are actually God's most incredible process in your life. Real faith is what you do while it's still dark outside. Romans 5:8 tells us that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. While we were at our darkest, lowest places in life, God loved us. Therefore, even while we feel unfruitful, we have a hope that tells us if we remain in a faithful connection to God, eventually we will see the fruit God is developing in and for us. It's taken more, like for some of us, it's taken more than 15, 20, 30 years to create the pattern of the way we live life, you know? Like we get up, we go to work, we do this, we do that. It's taken years to create this pattern. It's going to take more than 2 or 3 weeks to undo it. Years of living has planted things into your soil. Years of living has planted things into your soil. And it's going to take time to change that. It doesn't happen overnight. Just like in a garden, just like in any other farming. Again, not a farmer, but any other process. So it's going to take time to change that. Ain't going to happen overnight. And that's okay. It's a process. This might take a while. But when God is on your side, time is too. It's hard to commit to consistency when you have no frame of reference for the duration. Destiny doesn't have a deadline. Destiny doesn't have a deadline. Look, I've been in a job filling in for a whole year. I don't know if I'm going to go back to my job tomorrow or a week or a month or next year or what. And then even then, I don't know. Like my whole life is hard to commit to consistency when you have no frame of reference for the duration. All I do is fill in spots. I have nothing secure in my life right now. But when God is on your side, time is too. Since God is beyond time, right? He fully abides in the past, present, and future. In the same way that we view our surroundings at this precise moment, God just as clearly sees every day in everyone's life throughout all of history. I said that earlier. I'm saying it again because it's important. This is what the Lord says. While I cut you, I am cultivating you. If you can stick with it as a stub on this tree, watch out. It's going to be worth every moment of it. If it's uncomfortable right now, if you're being faithful and it's uncomfortable right now, stick with it. It's going to be worth it. God is going to make this worth your while. You'll bear fruit like you've never bared fruit before. Worship while you wait. You know, we'd rather enjoy the suddenly, like Acts and Pentecost, like the big flashy things. Remember though, as Jesus left, he said, wait. This might take a while. Wait. There was a wait before a suddenly. In all those instances, there was always a wait before a suddenly. Jesus said, I'm the vine, and you are the branches. He never said, I'm the vending machine. You don't just punch in a number, put it in a microwave, and tap a go button, wait 30 seconds, and beep, beep, beep. No, he is the vine. Things take time to grow on a vine. He's not a vending machine. What are some things in your life right now that you need to either cut off or cut back? You know, remember, our energy and our resources are limited. So it's important that we dedicate our time and our resources to the right things while we still have the time to do that, because our time is limited. Ask yourself this question. What are your top priorities? It doesn't matter how many you can list. You know, you determine the number. But what are your top priorities? If a stranger was asked to look at your life and list your top priorities based only on your actions, would they make the same list that you did? Just by seeing the way you live life, would they think that your priorities were really your priorities based on the way you live your life? If not, what commitments are taking up your priorities that aren't worth your while? What are some realistic ways that you can begin to shift those actions to align with your priorities? Because if your priorities don't line up with how you're living, you need to make a cutback. You need to make a change. You need to let the Lord do something to help you live in that manner, to let him make a cutback in your life. Because if your priorities are not your priorities based on the way you're living life, then they're not your priorities. And then again, I want you to think about this. I'm leaving you with this. What are some slow processes that you're involved in right now? Some slow things that maybe don't have fruit now, that you're involved in right now that you believe will be worth your while in time if you stick with it. Doesn't matter if you understand it. Doesn't matter if you're scared about it. Some things that will be worth your while in time if you stick with it and you let the Lord do whatever it is He's going to do in it. Think about it. Get your priorities. Think about your priorities. It's the way you're living. Do they line up with your priorities? What are some things that you're doing right now that are slow processes that maybe you don't even know what you don't even know. You have no clue what it's going to do. But at the end of the day, you think it's worth your time. And that's why you're sticking with it. You guys keep praying for me. I'm going to keep praying for you. And I hope I hope to see you guys soon. I miss you. Have a good day.